We have really there's not a lot of news or stuff going on right now. We're kind of in a slow time as far as legislative work and um, just kind of answering questions, just typical stuff. So what I'm going to start with, one question I have had recently is related to remote meetings, and whether towns can still do them. And this is in the context, sometimes people are just traveling, sometimes people are uncomfortable going into a populated space still. And short answer is yes, it's still possible to do remote meetings. There's two avenues to do this. The first one is what I'll call the well, I'll start with the one, it's the pandemic one. Okay. That one we've been living with as availability for a couple of years now. And it lives in the statute is 13D.021. And this one says that if the chair of the local government feels that there's a risk to people because of pandemic illness, or because there's an emergency declared, okay, it's either or, they can decide to hold meetings under this pandemic provision. So that has been available, and I think it probably still is available, but we're nearing the time when that's going to be done. That's not going to be available anymore. And it's because of those either or things. So you had the emergency order thing, which was one possibility for saying, okay, we're going to use the pandemic provision. And then you have the other option, which is the existence of a pandemic. We don't have an emergency order anymore, but this other avenue, whether there is a pandemic, still provides the opportunity for townships to use that provision. What you need, though, is some kind of credible representation from a public health organization or something like that that says, yes, in fact, there is still a pandemic. And it may not feel the same as it did a year ago, but you still need that label. And I do check from time to time the several agencies. I check Minnesota Department of Health, CDC, and WHO. Those are three that people tend to know pretty well. And two of them no longer list COVID as a pandemic, but they don't say it's endemic. It's really just that they don't put the label on. Okay, so Minnesota Department of Health and CDC, they're not calling it endemic, which is the phase after a pandemic. Okay, but they're not saying it's over either. Okay, so they're kind of in the middle. They're not saying it's done. You can infer from that it's still pandemic, but they're not advertising it as such. Okay, and that's consistent with comments Dr. Fauci had made, giving some testimony about a month and a half ago, that said, well, it's still pandemic, but it's getting to such a low level now that it's transitioning into the endemic phase. So that's one set of factors you could look at. Okay. The other is WHO, World Health Organization, and that still lists it prominently as pandemic, with articles that say it's moving to endemic, and here's how we can get it to endemic faster. The reason that I provide those examples is that if you're going to use that statute to take that avenue of holding remote meetings under the pandemic rules, you need to have something to back up what you're saying, because we're not that kind of, we're not doctors, right? Or at least we're not that kind of doctor. We're not a public health agency here at MAT. We can't tell you what it is. So we look to some kind of expert. And those are the kind of expertise you want to look at. Okay. Something that is a credible public health entity saying, yes, it still qualifies as this. Okay. And that's why I say you can still pull that for right now, and you can still use that. Okay. That's coming to a close. It's getting to the point where we're not going to have that anymore. Once that's done, now we're in the other remote meeting world. Okay. The other remote meeting world is one we've had for a long time. It allows a person to attend a meeting remotely if they meet some criteria. And this is in 13D.02. And it's a little harder to use this one because what you have to do is you have to give notice of where you will be if you're remote, and it has to be open to the public. So if I'm going down to Arizona, because we get this with snowbirds a lot, right? I'm going to go down to Arizona for a couple months, but I still want to participate. Well, you can if your town board agrees to, accommodate video. You can do that. But wherever you are, they have to post where's your location, and people should be able to come into it. And that's not very realistic in a lot of places, especially if you're traveling. If you're in a hotel room, how are you going to have a public space where people can show up? And nobody's going to fly down to where you are to attend a public meeting. It's just a little absurd, right? But it's in the rules. So we go through the steps of trying to identify, if you're going to use this, where are you going to be, and how is it in the public where the public can access it. It has to be a case where everybody can see and hear each other. We can't just do teleconference with this. Okay, not in this one. You have to take all votes by roll call if you do this, so it's very clear who's voting for what. It gets recorded that way in your minutes. Okay, so it's some extra steps. That's the basic rule. Okay, there is an opportunity for some exceptions with that rule. Up to 3 times a year, a person can attend a meeting remotely without the public being allowed into that meeting space. If they're military and they're in a place where the public is not allowed to go, okay, if they're on base and the public can't get there, okay, they may be able to participate up to 3 times a year from that location without the public being able to be there. And the other one is if you have your doctor, medical professional saying you need to be away from other people, you can have them provide that direction, and then you can appear 3 times per calendar year, remotely without anybody in your space. Okay, so those are the 2 options that remain to us if you're going to use remote meetings. Okay. There's folks, I think a lot of other governments in the state have gone to, they've gone away from the pandemic provision. Some, I think they focus too much on the emergency order aspect. They treat it only as if there's emergency order, you can do it. And if not, you can't. Well, it doesn't say that. It provides a couple of options. And as long as you can provide your reasoning, it is not arbitrary. And we look to experts for that. So that is a common question we've been getting. Let's see. Reno's usually on. Reno Wells. He asked that one a while back. I want to see if I missed anything there. I saw Jeff. Is Jeff on today? Looks like no Jeff. Okay. A comment, our township provides Zoom option in addition to physical meetings in the town hall building without our officers in the town hall. Are we compliant? It sounds like it. So a lot of places are trying to keep the option for people to monitor meetings by remote means. The only concern I would see with that is one imposed by some changes to the open meeting law in the last couple of years that say if you're going to have anything online, you have to treat all those online like you do all those in person. And that can be a challenge just practically. How do they sign up for public comment, for example? How do they put in that they're on the list? If you take 10 public comments per meeting, let's say, well, how do you put them in? Or do you say, well, we're going to take 10 here and we're going to take 5 online, or 5 online, 5 offline? It's not necessarily fair. But it is an option. And some places are finding, people will monitor these things and they'll watch it. Not much different than a city putting their city council on public television, local public access television. So that's okay. And if all your officers are in the hall, you're not really in the remote meeting world. You're just making use of some technology to broadcast it. So you're kind of entirely out of that remote meeting world there. I've got a question. on voting. So our voting area is a vote by mail. We received the notice form from the county to post the notice of ballot procedure. Do we need to publish this in the paper? We've posted it, but it seems publishing would be required since we have to publish the town elections. I'd have to go look it up, Mayor. I'm sorry, I don't remember what it is. I'd have to check. I don't remember that one offhand. So if you drop me an email with that, I'll try to get back to you on it and find you the statute. So other than that, with events, there's district meetings coming up in August. A few districts have elections at that time. We have, is Lori on? Let me see. Lori there? There we go. Lori, do we have any trainings coming up?
No, we don't have anything official for training right now. I am in the process of doing a CTAS recording for those, especially from Deerwood, who ended up with the power outage during the four corners. And I'll have that on. We are, and Petra and Nicole I see are on. I'll be sending them a letter regarding townships that have not submitted their CTAS, their financial report, to the state auditor. The auditor's office is asking us for our assistance. So Petra and Nicole and I will be getting together and figuring out how we can help you get that report done. Other than that, there is not really anything on the horizon. Annual conference, we're going to have some training there. Haven't really thought about any more training in person at this point, but if we do, we will let you know.
Yep.
And Pat, I'm sending you a message. So if anybody has any questions as far as training or anything like that, give us a call. One thing that I want everybody to know is David Frame has resigned as a trainer. So right now it's Nicole and Petra and I am going to be doing some interviewing. I think Diane's on here. She's interested in training. There's a couple other people I know. We're in desperate need, folks. So Diane, I know will be great. We're going to be getting together Thursday, the trainers, Petra, Nicole, and I, and anybody that's interested in training. We're going to be having a Zoom call Thursday. So I'll send that link out. Hopefully we'll get some more peeps so we don't have trainers getting burnt out.
Yes.
So any questions, just give us a holler.
Any other questions today? I'm not seeing anything. So it's a quick day. Like I said, not a ton going on right now. Just calls and email. I mean, we're busy, but there's not a lot of big group activity here. So, all right. Well, I think that'll be it for today then, without any questions. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.